right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. How do I introduce our next guest?
It's hard.
I want to tell you something. Carl Reiner is our next guest. I'll just tell you who he is up front. And I know that everybody knows this because we've been promoting it since we found out. He's got a new book. It's a memoir called I Remember Me. But I wanted to say something before we go to him, and I won't make him wait too long. He's been waiting a long time for this show. You know that, right?
I know. He just hasn't been, he can't wait.
But I was thinking something. As I was reading through the book, I was thinking to myself, I know all these people. I don't really know any of them, not really. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I do. They've been part of my life all my life. Carl Reiner, Mel Brooks, even his wife. I didn't even realize that we knew her more than I knew her. And it was just, the names go on and on. Of course, Carl's son, Rob, we all got to know him as well. And it was kind of like, when we've had guests on the show who've written about this town, and there are names in the book that we know. It's like, oh, cool, I know that person. Well, I don't think there was a name in this book I didn't know.
Yeah.
It was it's an amazing read, and he's just as funny in writing as he has always been. Carl Reiner, I guess most people introduce you by telling about your work with Dick Van Dyke and all of the other great shows you've been part of, but my goodness, I felt like I knew you, and I never have met you before, and now we get to speak to you. It's very much an honor, and I hope it's okay that I call you Carl. I've been calling...
I want to say one thing. I am so glad I got up at 8 o'clock in the morning to hear this. My whole day is going to be a lot smilier.
Oh, that's right.
Because, no, you said the nicest things. Nobody ever said these many nice things to me at 8:04 in the morning, and there was 11 there. But I'm getting up with a smile on my whole face.
I forgot that you were in the West Coast. So, well, thank you for getting up early. Oh, my goodness, Rob. We got up one of the biggest stars on the planet. We got him up early.
Yeah, he's up with the birds now.
Holy mackerel. Well, thank you for coming on. And I mean it. I'm reading the book. There's been a few people, I guess, who are celebrities that I have felt like I knew them, and I never really knew them. Mm-hmm. But, not only do I feel like I know you, I feel like I know everybody you know.
Well, that's one of the pleasures of having the ability to, or that they give you a chance to write a book. Somebody says, we'll publish it. And I said, oh, I'll write it. There are things that I'm a storyteller. I tell these stories to people whether I had a book or not. I just love having a brain that reminisces. I just love it. And this is the fact that I called it I Remember Me is just perfect, because I used to walk around the block while I was writing this, and I got to the it's a four block. I walk around. When I got to the third block, I always invariably said, oh my gosh, that's a good story. I would think of something that happened to me maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, and went right into the book.
Well, and then a lot of people may be doing that. You're thinking about your past, but you chose to write it down and then share it with us. A lot of times memoirs are for family alone. Was that the original intent? Was just for the family?
No. I'm a performer. There's no question about it. And I don't get up and go on stage anymore. And this is a way to talk to an audience.
Yeah. The history behind, and by the way, you've done one thing I guess I did not know that I learned from the book was your military service. It just didn't occur to me, and I also didn't know you were much taller than your father. By the way,
and my mother,
and your mother. Yes, you tower over both of them in that one photo in the book.
My brother and I were I was about 6'1" and 3/4. He was 6'1", and my mother and father were 5'3" and 5'2" respectively. And I once asked my dad. I said, Dad, where do we get our height? He says, well, you don't only get it from your parents, you get it from your forebears. Your people who came before us. And I says, well, he says, well, your grandfather, his father, you got some from him. I said, well, how tall was he? He said 5'6". He was 5'6".
Oh, that's too funny.
He was tall to my father.
And that's an amazing thing about your dad. He ran the gamut of creativity. You point out he played the flute and the violin. He was a watchmaker, which is truly becoming a lost art, and he loved photography.
Yeah, and he was also an inventor. He invented a couple things that got patents. One is the battery clock, the clock that runs on a flashlight battery. And 50 years ago, he invented. He got a patent on that.
You know, early in the book, you talk about the I guess it was the speech you gave at your bar mitzvah.
Yes.
And you put an address in there, and I looked up the address because my mom and actually, when I was born, my family lived in the Bronx, but I don't remember it. I was too young, but I looked up the address, and it wasn't that far away. It was just, if you do that little Google thing, and a line from your house to my house wasn't that far away, except I was a baby.
No kidding. Where did they live? Do you remember?
Katona Avenue. If that
Katona Avenue, Katona Park is where I played.
Wow.
Kid. My brother went fishing in Crotona, the Indian Lake in Crotona Park, and he used to bring home goldfish and carp. And they, they were big, if they were too big, he'd put them in a bathtub. We had live fish swimming in our bathtub.
Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny. Yeah, and my dad actually worked for a clock guy, a watch guy. So I don't know. There might be, we might have a connection, and I never knew about it.
You know, a few years ago, a New Yorker did a piece on me, the magazine, and I went to my old neighborhood, and I said, I'm going to show you the house I was born, 665 East. And I went there, and there's an empty lot. They had raised the house. They tore it down, and I said, oh, my gosh. And I picked a brick out, 2 bricks. I sent one to my brother in Atlanta. I said, here's our ancestral home. This is all that's left of it.
Yeah, well, that was probably a cool thing to receive, too. Right. The opening of the book does talk about you receiving the actual handwritten speech that your dad wrote for the bar mitzvah.
That's the thing you never expect, and there it is. I talk about my father having a beautiful handwriting. He was an engraver, and he had these curlicues. But this is just one of these crazy things. I got a letter from a Mrs. Fiorello, and she said, "This may mean something to you, but I found it. It was my father's bar mitzvah speech," and he says, I knew it wasn't written by anybody in my family, but your neighbor, his neighbor was your father, and on the back there was the date of the speech, and I said, my God, I looked at it and I said, I remember this speech. It's my bar mitzvah speech. and I only remembered it because the first 2 words were worthy assembly. I've never heard those 2 words used before.
Yeah, I know. That was very cool. Do you know what I've noticed? If you don't mind I'm going to make an observation of my own about you, is that when listening to you, because in order to prepare for this interview, I watched some other interviews that you did with other people, not just recently, but in the past. You don't talk about yourself. You always will talk about other people.
Oh, well.
And that's kind of the way you wrote the book, too. I mean, we got to know you by hearing how much you love these other people that you wrote about.
Yeah, you know something? I found something out about myself that I didn't know, and I said, who am I, one day, about no less than 3 months ago. And I'll tell you how it happened. I've decided that if I'm going to name myself something, I am a master of ceremonies. I've done hundreds and hundreds of events, where I'm the master of ceremony. I don't prepare. I have the ability to get up and say what's on the audience's mind, and they laugh. and so I said, what I get the greatest pleasure out of, and I really mean this, is to say, ladies and gentlemen, here is Jan Pierce, and a guy gets up and sings, and you get a little bit of pleasure, a little bit of benefit from the fact that said, he introduced that man to me. Well, the other day, a few months ago, I saw a movie called Searching for Sugarman. Did you see it?
No.
Oh, boy, are you lucky you spoke to me. Are you lucky? Well, I became a bore about this. It's a documentary, Searching for Sugarman.
Okay.
And it's maybe the best picture I've seen in years.
Searching for Sugarman. I got to write it down. Okay.
And, well, it's going to win the award for the best documentary. No question about it. I won't tell you more about it. But I became a bore about it. I told every friend. I'm a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. We choose films to be screened. And I went and I spoke to these 20 people. And they're the ones who pick out pictures, even documentaries. I said, did anybody here see this? Nobody saw it.
Oh, no.
Last week I came there, and to a man, they came, thank you, Carl. Wow, we would have missed it. We would have missed it. and I get more pleasure from people
Well,
having seen something I recommended because I've said, here he is.
all right. Well, now you've and I will watch it. Believe it or not.
And
But
not only you, but your audience of 41. What do you got? 41 million. How many
41
people?
million,
Yeah, we sure
maybe
do.
41. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Well, at least 17,000 of those 41 million are going to go, and they're going to thank you and the two of you and me for telling the scene.
I hope so. But make the connection for me, because it sounds like you were going to that title because it reminded you of yourself.
Not at all.
No, okay.
Searching for Sugarman is a picture. I won't tell you anything about
So
it.
you only brought it up so that they would get some more viewers.
Exactly, and because I'm doing that Master of Ceremonies thing.
You're doing the same thing.
And those people, when they see that movie, they're going to say, where did I hear about it? On your show, you two guys? Yeah. But that voice that came from the other side of the country told me to see it.
Can we ask you to talk about Estelle a little bit?
Oh, that's my favorite thing.
Tell us about Estelle.
Well, 65 years with the right woman. While there's going to be a pause while I take a sip of water because I need a sip to talk.
That's
about
okay. Marco Rubio did the same thing.
That's right, he did. Only he used a bottle. you probably are using a glass.
By the way, I don't know if you're a Republican or Democrat, but all I can say is I got such a thrill out of watching him founder. Or I should say flounder, because he was like a fish out of water. Anyway, about my wife, there's a law. I think a good deal of the book that has its heart is the center of this book. The heart is Estelle. I said this many times. I said she raised 3 wonderful children and 1 wonderful husband. I married Estelle. I met Estelle when I was 20. We married at 21, and she was 29 at the time. And I call myself the original Ashton Kutcher. But everybody said that's a little old for you. And go know that we're going to have 65 years of the best life. She knew everything. She was one of these extraordinary people who, from the tip of her toes, we talk about her every day. As a matter of fact, my son Lucas has an art show on Wilshire Boulevard at one of the big galleries. He's a really successful, fine artist. And we were talking about her the other day. The fact that he's an artist because when she was painting, she put a little easel next to her when he was 6 years old, and he was painting beside her.
Oh, wow.
All of our kids get all of their, because I have a talent that's out there, people have seen me, they think it's from me. Well, the genes, all the good genes from Robbie, Annie, and Lucas are from Estelle.
Oh, wow.
She painted, she sang, she played instruments, she could do anything. She played tennis like a guy because she had 2 brothers who were athletes, and when she was a little tiny, they taught her to play tennis, and she served like a guy. She did, and yesterday I had lapin, a rabbit. She was a great cook, and I was thinking of her yesterday. So I looked up her recipe for rabbit, and I had rabbit last night.
Oh, wow.
There isn't a day I don't think about something she has done. Every part of this house where I looked, anything that is in this house reflects her artistic ability.
Wow.
She was a marvel, and I write about her. As a matter of fact, I wrote one of the things. I write about her history before I met her, and I call it BC, before Carl.
That's right. That's right.
When she was a little kid, she was talented when she was 3-4 years old. So it was one of these things that, and the end of the book is called The End, and I was at a little gathering the other day. A group of people called themselves Women Who Write. They invited me to. Before the book was published, I read a few pages from the book, and I read the called The End, my wife's passing, and I have somebody filmed it because the guy who published the book was also a photographer, and he filmed 60 people weeping copiously at this little story of my wife's passing. It was sad, but it wasn't sad because she got to be 94, and she had 3 children and has a raft of great memories that she left for not only me, but for every one of our friends and family.
Wow, that's a wonderful. I mean, you can hear it in your voice. You can feel it in the words that you've written in the book. If you're just tuning in, Carl Reiner is our guest. You probably recognize his voice. His book is called "I Remember Me." It's his memoirs, and if you've been around any number of years, you know the people in this book. Whether it's somebody as recent as Jerry Seinfeld, Billy Crystal is in the book. Billy Crystal does the forward, by the way, and
I know it's the most beautiful forward. I called him and I said, you did over and beyond the call of duty.
yeah.
By the way, I was on Jimmy Kimmel the other day, plugging the book, and it was very. And I was going to do something that when you mentioned my voice, talking voice,
Right.
and I said, I'm going to do for you what I didn't do on his show. I'm going to sing an aria from Pagliacci.
Oh, excellent.
Recitar mentre preso dall'elirio non fu peccico dico e quel che faccio e poi dopo so. I would go further, but the time is limited. But I really
You're
can't
wonderful.
I really can't do the whole thing. I did it an octave lower than Caruso did because it's early in the morning.
But wasn't that an aspiration for you at one time?
Oh, absolutely. In one of the chapters, I write about wanting to be an Irish tenor, but what I really wanted to be was an Italian tenor.
Yeah,
my father had all these Caruso records and every major.
Well, the Irish tenors had just a little bit. Their voice was a little too high. It was annoying.
Yeah.
I think Italian tenor would have been better for you. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the fact that you always adapted to whatever situation or place you were in. I thought it was really funny when you were teaching French, giving French lessons.
Oh, Tim Bell.
Yes.
Yeah, we've done that. And he comes over every night. He was here last night with some of his children. We had a little. He comes over every night and we play. He's still the funniest man I know. There's no question about that.
Obviously love each other. I saw, what was it? Something Seinfeld did where it's called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
Oh, yes.
And he went to visit you two. Yeah. And it was just such a cool, I don't know, again, I felt like I was with friends, even though I never have met any of you, but I guess there's something about the media, there's something about comics, I guess, and I don't know if this is true for all comics, but there's something true about the circle that you're in, that you kind of just, I guess, you expose yourselves to us. And
well, you know something, we cannot be comics unless there are people who are laughing at what we say.
Yeah.
And so we are very friendly kind of people. We need somebody's ears to listen to what the silliness that comes out of us.
By the way,
there's no sound in the forest if nobody's there to hear the people.
Sure. By the way, there's one part I know Robin and I were sharing. What did you get to this part? Did you get to that part? Well, the one that made me laugh, I said to Robin, did you get to the part where you go to the beach and it's a topless beach?
Oh, Lucas Reiner.
Yes. Yeah.
Lucas Reiner. Should we tell it to the audience?
Please tell that story, yes.
Well, Lucas was 16 years old. We had a house in the south of France at Castel-Arras, a little domain, and we were driving along the beach, and we came to this Saint-Tropez, and we said, oh, let's stop off and see the beach. And he was 16, and he had his friend with him, was 16. We got out of the car, and coming at us were 4 of the most beautiful bosoms we've ever seen. and we all didn't say anything. Lucas, I looked over to Lucas and his friend, nothing on their face, just like they didn't see it. And we sat down and had a little, time in the sand. They went for a walk. They came back out an hour later, and they weren't talkative. They said they had a nice time. We got back in the car, and 1 hour to go back to home, to our place in Castel-Arras. They sat in the back seat, not making a sound. We're trying to get them into conversation. How did you like the beach? Nothing. Well, look at that. There's this, and we're showing them things that monosyllabic grunts. And finally, after an hour, Lucas's voice was heard in the back seat. As we approached our house, his voice, these are the exact words he said. Quietly, he said, "This has been the best day of my whole life." That was it. That was it.
Goodness. And they were wandering around the beach for a full hour, by the way.
Oh, full hour.
They were taking in the sights.
At 16, that is an accurate description of his best day of his whole life.
That
There's
is
no
too
question
funny.
about it.
That is too funny. You can't help but laugh at that.
What is absolutely marvelous about you, sir, and the other people that you have in your circle of friends and people you met along the years, it seems you each have embraced the talents of the other. These days, sometimes we find people that are of the same type of talents. They're jealous of each other, and then they get mad at each other, and they're always at odds. They're never friends. But that was never the way in your case and the other people that appear in your book.
It's absolutely true. I think the only people who are going to be very angry with me are the Scientologists. Because I did. You know, the funny thing is, when I wrote that section about Scientology, I said, "Oh, they're going to come after me. They're going to be angry with me."
Yeah, they're not going to take it.
And now a book came out, which, as a matter of fact, I'm reading it. It's on my bed at this minute. It's called "Going Clear: Scientology, Hollywood, and the Prison of Belief" by Lawrence Wright. And I said, Lawrence Wright got it right, and he's going to get. And it's such a well-defined book, and it's so deeply researched. I said he's going to be the buffer. They have to get to him before they get to me. They're going to yell in his ear a lot more than they're going to yell in mine.
That's too funny. That's too funny.
It just seems that in some of the episodes of the Dick Van Dyke Show, I could see similarities to what you've written in your book. I've always had a question about the photograph of Abraham Lincoln in the desk that Rob Petrie found, and then you wrote in your book that your dad had some daguerreotypes, and when Dick Van Dyke's character Rob Petrie found the photograph, he said, "The real Raymond Massey." I mean, that was the best laugh ever.
Yeah.
Was that the same photograph?
It was one of them. But by the way, when you talked about the daguerreotype yesterday, 2 days ago, my father invented a device where he took. There's a thing in the book, Irving shooting Irving, playing Irving,
yes.
Right,
playing violin. Well, I found. I have the device that he invented to take his own picture, but I found an earlier picture of himself with a big daguerreotype, a big plate glass camera, standing next to it, holding the plunger and looking into a mirror. He took a picture of himself in the mirror. I have the picture of him looking into a mirror, shooting himself.
Oh, wow.
And I wish I had it before now I'll have to write another book.
That's right.
By the way, I love the fact that I have pictures in the book. I was looking through it and I said, ooh, a book with pictures.
They're beautiful. They're very, very expressive.
And some of them say everything. I don't know. It's, the one of you and Mel. I mean, I don't know if you posed for it or not, and it just, I don't know, it just looks like you guys.
No, we didn't. These are all pictures I pulled out of the archives. None of these pictures are posed for the book. They were, just from in boxes. Luckily, I was always taking pictures. I had a little camera. Always, when you have children, you keep a camera handy.
We were so excited to speak to you. I'm looking at the clock. I can't believe we're almost out of time. But can I allow our listeners to say a word or two?
Yes.
Are you okay with that? All right, let me go to the phone. Somebody's been waiting a long time. Good morning. You're on the air now with Carl Reiner.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Mr. Reiner for his family's body of work and for his kindness to get up so early and speak with Ocala, Florida. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Listen,
thank you.
Thank you for getting up almost as early as me.
You're not quite as early as you. TV. It's I don't know. We always look back on the people who made TV what it was in the early days, and we wouldn't have had the same TV if it wasn't for you. And had you been born in a time when TV wasn't around, I'm sure you still would have made people laugh. It just you wouldn't have reached as far.
Well, I was around before TV because I as a young. As a matter of fact, they did a production of Enter Laughing the musical, which is basically how I got into show business. But before I got into when I got into show business, there was nothing like TV. And when I got into TV, it was 1948. And at ABC on 67th Street in New York, there was a horse rink where the horses were, and they took one little. And then when I was doing that little thing called the fashion story, I got paid $80 a week. I was in a show called Inside USA with Jack Haley and B. Lilly, and I finished the show at 5 minutes of 8. Got in a cab, changed in a cab, and for those 2 jobs, I got $150 for and $80 for this, and it's been a steady upward climb since.
I hope so.
Wow.
Wow. Well, and that wasn't bad at the time, really. That was not too bad. Carl Reiner, I am so honored and pleased. Thank you so much for getting up early to be with us.
As a matter of fact, I thank you because I'm up this early and I've talked so much. I've developed such a wonderful appetite. I'm going to have the best breakfast because of it.
One of your major attributes, sir, is truly how you let the talents of others shine.
Yes.
And that is truly admirable quality.
Well, it's funny, and the fact that I'm calling myself a master of ceremonies, it's what I do. I love nothing better to point at and say, look at that.
Yeah.
And I'm pointing at the book now. Look at that.
Look at that book.
That's
yes.
right, and ours.
Yeah, the book.
We can't wait
The
for
book
ours.
is called "I Remember Me." Carl Reiner and Robin and I. When Robin ordered hers, by the way, they told her, "Oh, you're in luck. It's the last one."
Yeah, through Barnes and
So
Noble.
you better call them up.
Well,
that's right.
That's because they bought 7 books. They had 7 books.
You better call up your publisher. Robin got the last one.
That's right.
I love it.
Thank you so much, Carl, for getting up to be with us.
Okay,
I almost feel rude calling you Carl.
Okay, so you'll call me tomorrow and we'll do this again.
Oh, awesome.
That would be great.
That'd be great. Thank you, not just for being on our show, but for being there for us all of our lives. You've always been there.
I thank you. This has been very wonderful for me. At my age, to hear these nice words, I think you just added 67 hours to my life.
And you will spend them extremely wisely, sir, helping others shine.
I will. I promise.
Have a good breakfast. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, we'll take a break and be right back.
We're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
You've got a garden and we've got a show for you called You've Got a Garden with your host, Master Gardener Carol Ann Baldwin. Carol Ann answers your questions about your flowers, your veggies, your grass, your trees, even questions about your bugs. And she's only on WOCA, so don't miss Carol Ann Baldwin and You've Got a Garden each Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on WOCA The Source.
Hi, Brittany here from Mike Scott Plumbing. We're well into the new year, the world didn't end, and now you have all those New Year resolutions you haven't even started on. So here's an idea. Take the money you are going to